Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katy in Seattle. And remember, if you'd like ad-free listening, please join us over on Patreon. Do yourself a favor, get ad-free shows, and help support this podcast in the meantime. You can find a link in the show notes. Today, we are going to be tackling an article from the New York Times that came out a couple weeks ago. The headline was this: "They went abroad to save money. Moving back seems unaffordable." And the subheading to that says, "Americans have enjoyed lifestyles that would normally be out of reach to them by working remotely in countries with lower costs." Article written by Will McCurdy. And I saw this article, I sent it to Tiffany, and I thought we could discuss it. It starts out by laying out the story of a woman who is from Baltimore, who now lives in Tbilisi, Georgia. She says, in the article it says that she earns under $40,000 doing her job, but because she lives in Tbilisi, she is able to have a housekeeper twice a week. She can take cabs daily, and she regularly eats out, which is a lifestyle she could not afford if she were living back at home in Baltimore. But it also expresses her desire to return home to the U.S. to give her eldest child more opportunities and to eventually retire around her family. But she now thinks that the costs seem too high to come back. And of course, this article goes on to give the stories of other people who are in different countries experiencing different things, but similar things. Anyway, so that's the premise. You move abroad to live a better lifestyle, and then you can no longer come home. And I wanted to give Tiffany a chance to give her reaction to this article in general, and then we can kind of dig further in it. So what did you think?
Yeah, I think it's really true. I can totally imagine being in their shoes. I'm in a different situation because I don't really have the desire to move back to the United States, probably ever. And I'm kind of glad because I kind of feel like I won't have to face this. But I can totally see how that could happen if you do want to move back. And there are lots of reasons to move back for some people. And you get used to, it's very easy to get used to a much less expensive lifestyle. And when your lifestyle is much less expensive, of course, you're going to consume more of what you can consume at a lower price. And then you get used to that. It's a kind of golden handcuffs type situation. Kind of in reverse. I mean, obviously we talk about the golden handcuffs being like the cushy job that you hate, whereas you get used to the salary and then you're stuck there and you can't leave that job. So this is kind of the opposite in a sense because you're not making a cushy salary, but the place that you live enables you to live, I don't necessarily know if it's a cushy lifestyle, but a comfortable lifestyle. And you get used to that. And I can imagine it's very hard to go back.
Yes, I imagine so as well. And I have had that experience in coming back to the States and finding out, just being in the grocery store and being like, wow, why is everything so much more expensive? One thing you learn living in Rome is some things are very expensive living in Rome, but the one thing that's not expensive, a head of lettuce. And, it's 3 times the size of the head of lettuce that you buy in the United States. So in the United States, you get your head of lettuce, you spend, at least if you're in Seattle, your $3.49 or whatever.
Whoa.
And
oh my God.
How much is your head of lettuce?
99 cents.
At the most, right?
And that's a head of romaine lettuce, like a big long one.
Yeah, and it's like larger than your head, like it's gigantic. So yeah, I totally get that. I was kind of thinking of it though, in multiple other ways. So I totally, so let's say, okay, both of us totally get the premise of the article. If you have a maid service or you have a chef who's cooking for you every day and you're making $40,000 a year, it's hard to go back to being like living in a 1-bedroom apartment and having to do all your own chores for yourself. Okay, fine. Let's say we agree with that. But what if we looked at this a different way? Okay, all of these people in the article, I think, are working remotely. So they're making a United States salary. And all of them are making what we would consider kind of a United States salary. In fact, I think one guy in the article is making less than $15,000 a year doing his job. And of course, he's not living like a king. I think he was living in Mexico, if I recall, without looking at the article. He's not like living like a king, but when he goes back home at the end, he moves back in with his parents because, he's not making any money to make any kind of savings. He's spending everything to just live day to day. And so when he does return back to the United States, he has to move in with his parents to, try to amass enough money to actually be able to rent a place. Totally get that. But here's the bigger question. I have two bigger questions. One, when it comes to you in particular, you're not working for a foreign company. Most of the jobs you've had in Italy have been for things in Italy, That's like the vast majority of your work life since you moved there has been working for a magazine in Italy under an Italian salary. And one thing we've talked about in the past is it almost in reverse for you, like where you live really well and things are cheaper, like a head of lettuce. But if you were working for a magazine in the United States, you might hypothetically be making like 3 times as much as you're making in Italy. You're almost, in some cases, like in reverse. Like, would you be making more money if you had chosen to stay here, given what your skills and expertise are?
I think when it comes to like straight up dollar amount, yes, for sure. But even if it was triple, I don't know if that would be enough to give me the kind of lifestyle that I have here. Now, I should say I don't live in a mansion or a big house. I live in a condo. For Italy, it's considered a spacious condo. Like you always say, your house is tiny. It's small on American. You're like, well, what you say is my house is tiny and your apartment is even smaller. And I'm like, hey, I thought my apartment was big.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is big. And my house is tiny.
Well, I haven't seen your house, but it doesn't look tiny. I mean, you've got that adorable loft that you're in right now that I just love. But anyway, I'll take your word that it's tiny. But my apartment it's a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 bathrooms and a separate kitchen, which for Italy is considered. I mean, unless you live in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking about if you live in Rome, right? If you live in Rome, that is considered a spacious apartment. We have lots of friends and people we know who have 2 kids, and they live in 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom and a kitchen in the living room, which is like kind of like almost half the size. So it's not considered a small apartment for Italy, but for American standards, it's not what the typical American is living in. Unless you live in like a big city like New York or San Francisco, then yes, I think it would still probably.
Or Seattle.
Or Seattle, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Seattle is, renting an apartment in Seattle is not a cheap thing.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to put that out there. So I don't feel like I live a cushy life, but I feel like I live a comfortable life. But I also think that that's mindset. I really think that is mindset.
That's actually another question I wanted to get into. Because sure, you're living in Tbilisi, Georgia, and now you can afford a housekeeper. And it's hard to give up a housekeeper, I'm sure, if you have one. But I mean, that's the larger question I had was like, but do you need that to like feel like you're living a good lifestyle? Or has it become so cushy? Like I had a friend who lived in Thailand who, on his Thai salary, because he was a single man, he could rent a house that was something like 3 or 4 stories. And he had a woman who came in to clean like multiple times a week. And at the same point when I went to visit him, I'm like, why do you need this much space? And he's like, well, I don't, but it's so cheap. It's like, why not? But I mean, that's the other thing is like your standards can be reset.
Your standards can be reset, but I also think that different people, I've always said this, different people have different priorities. And I see it amongst my own friends, and I see it amongst, Claudia and I talk about it. Luckily, Claudia and I have very similar priorities, financial priorities, thank God. Because I think if you don't have similar financial priorities in your relationship, that's a problem, unless you have so much money that it doesn't matter. But like, we do not prioritize cars. Like, we each have a car. And they both run, and we bought them new, but they're not fancy cars. They're basic, they're basic cars. And we don't need like we'll use them until they don't run anymore. Like that's when we'll get a new car.
Right.
And we also don't care much about clothes and accessories, especially Claudio. And I mean, you might think, well, He's a guy who, what guy cares about his clothes and accessories? Italian guys, that's who. Italian guys care a lot about their clothes and accessories. And there are Italian men who spend, who have like 30 pairs of 400 euro sneakers, literally. I mean, and that is something that like, I think my husband has 5 pairs of shoes, maybe. And he still fits and wears clothes from when he was in his early 20s. And he'll buy new clothes from time to time. But at Christmas, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend gave him a really cute jacket. And I said, gosh, if it weren't for you guys, Claudia wouldn't have any clothes. He just doesn't buy clothes for himself, like unless he desperately needs something. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the store. And it's like he needs me there because he can't.
Yeah. Well,
So that's just to say he doesn't prioritize clothes. I personally also don't care about. There's one thing that I like, which are Hermes scarves, which are my special luxury, which I get one every 5 years or so from Claudio. But other than that, I don't care about bags. I don't care about shoes anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore.
I was
don't care
gonna
about
say, I'm like, I
clothes.
think of you as like my fashionista friend.
I honestly just don't. I just don't care anymore. I think what happened was there were so many years of ugly fashion, and I don't know if it was worse in Italy because in Italy everything's a little bit exaggerated. It's like it goes further, and I just hated the clothes for so long, and I hated shopping, and I hated the shopping experience in Italy, and I still hate the shopping experience in Italy. That I just completely went off it all. Like when I need something, I'm like I begrudgingly drag myself to the mall and I buy a new pair of jeans if I desperately need one because the other ones got ripped or something. That's how I live now. I just don't care. And I do have a couple beautiful dresses, of course, that I pull out, but I just don't care anymore. So we don't have those priorities, of kind of disposable goods, quite frankly. Even a car is a disposable good. So we value travel. We value a certain amount of convenience. And for me, that is having a cleaner come and clean my house once a week. And can I live without that? Sure. But I'd rather not have a new pair. I'd rather buy myself a 40 euro sweater instead of a 300 euro sweater and save that money and use that for like, that's just a priority that I prefer. I want to have my piano lessons. I want my son to have piano lessons. I want my son to be able to take karate lessons and go on these trips that we take every year. So for him to do karate with all the masters of his karate federation. I want my son to be able to go to private school. Now, I should say private school is way cheaper over here than it is in the US. Like vastly cheaper unless you're going to international school, which he's not at this point. So what is a cushy lifestyle to some people is not a cushy lifestyle to other people. For some people, it's like if you don't have a BMW or an Audi or Mercedes or whatever, you don't have a wealthy life. You don't have a comfortable life if you don't have that kind of car. I don't see it that way. Just the fact that I live in Italy and I therefore can easily get to so many amazing countries, for me, that is a luxury in and of itself. Traveling to a European country for me is a fraction of what it would cost for an American to do so.
That's true.
In America. And so I feel like that's a luxury that I have that has nothing to do with my bank account or my salary. It's just my location.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, all that said, though, I can remember being a younger person living in Seattle, and I had a professional job and all that stuff. And I can remember walking around, and I'm sure lots of you listening feel the same way if you're living in the United States. I remember walking around and feeling depressed because I knew that I would never be able to afford a house. I ended up being wrong about that. Because, obviously we managed to get this home that we have.
A beautiful home.
And
Katy,
it is cute.
It's an adorable, from what I've seen so far.
It's a wonderful little house. And it was not something that I could have seen coming in my late 20s or 30s, like the way to figure out how to make it work. But that said, at the time, it felt completely unrealistic. And also at the time, like I never had the thinking that the people in this article have had of, well, just go somewhere else. That maybe this problem is your location in the world. But I mean, it also is like not the easiest thing in the world to go somewhere else. Wherever you live, it's not like, as we've talked about for 10 years, it's not the easiest thing to decide to like, I'm going to relocate to a new country and start my life again. So
not at all.
Part of what this article made me think is like, yeah, these people, I guess, have gotten themselves into what they perceive as a bind but there's a certain level of privilege that they got to do it at all. Number one. Number two, it's like, well, how do the rest of us who are stuck living in a country where things are more expensive and we're not making that much money, how do we forge a good life without being able to take cabs all the time or go out to dinner or all the things these people cite that they cannot give up now that they have moved away, you know? I don't know if I have an answer to that question, but that is something that this article made me think about is what do we do if, you know, we are stuck where we are? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. One of the thoughts I had was if you're moving abroad for financial reasons, you should be prepared to stay there forever if you legally can. For this very reason.
Well, it costs so much to
Because,
move in general, you
you
know,
know,
right?
it costs so much to move. And yeah, I mean, unless you have a job that is, but again, then if this were the case, you wouldn't maybe feel the need to move abroad, I guess. I was going to say, unless you're making so much money that you're able to save a lot of it and then move back, if that's your plan. But again, I don't think that that would be the case for most people because it seems like people are, like you said, moving abroad so they can make a modest income stretch further.
Yeah. Rather than moving
Yeah,
abroad
I
to
just,
like make a house down payment by saving your money.
right,
Uh-huh.
right. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting topic, but like you said, I don't think that there's necessarily a solution other than that, be grateful that you were able to have this experience in the first place. And like you were saying that there is a certain amount of privilege that goes with these people and their story. We're able to do that in the first place. There's also a little bit of, I mean, I'm an expat slash immigrant, so you could charge me with this as well. But there is something that kind of rubs me the wrong way of, okay, I'm going to move to this foreign country and take advantage of the cheap lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using my American dollars to, you know,
Yeah, live like a queen,
possibly make
basically.
apartments more, live like a queen, make apartments more expensive for the locals. Obviously, one person doesn't do that, but a lot of people altogether moving to a particular neighborhood will, I mean, just think of Trastevere. Like Trastevere was lower class, it was working class until it was discovered by artists and then foreigners who thought it was so charming and all wanted to live there. And now it's unaffordable. That does happen.
That even happens within cities. You know, we've seen that over and over again where an area become an area is more affordable and then, you know, the richer people are like, "Oh, these houses are cheaper. I'll move down there and have a
Hmm.
bigger house." And then it drives all the locals out, you know, because they're either can't afford
Hmm.
it anymore or they're selling their place to make more money and it switches the entire character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. So while I kind of, obviously sympathize with people who are in this situation, I'm also like, well, you've been sort of getting a sweet deal for a long time. And yes, they certainly contribute to the local economy. It's not like they're, hoarding their wealth and sending it elsewhere. So that could be good for the local economy. But at the same time, they're getting a great deal as well. Now, some of the people in this article said that they didn't get any of the local benefits, but that's also because at least the first person wasn't paying any taxes
Mm-hmm.
or almost no taxes where she lives. And that would make it understandable that she would then not get any health benefits from where she is.
Mm-hmm.
But some people do get the benefits when they live in a foreign country. I have benefits here in Italy, but that's because I have worked for many, many years and paid taxes into the Italian economy, and I have also, or into the Italian state, and I'm also an Italian citizen. So it's my situation, like you said, is a little bit different.
I mean, maybe we are all playing this game on one level or another, you know, regardless of whether we move abroad or if we stay home. We're all trying to create the most comfortable lifestyle that we can afford. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if we cannot do it without affecting the lives of other people in some way.
Yeah.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that true? Is that a true statement I just said? Maybe.
I mean, probably. If you go deep enough, probably. If you peel back all the layers, of course. I mean, every action has a reaction, and everything that we do affects other people, whether we know it about it or not.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we should take a quick break for our advertisers.
Gotta make some money.
Want to spend a week in Rome with Katy and me at a time of year the city is less crowded, less hot, but just as wonderful as you imagine it? Now's your chance. The first week of November, this year, 2026, we are taking an intimate group of listeners to Rome for a week of beauty, discovery, and pleasure. After our 13 plus years hosting this podcast, which at least partially is about Rome and based in Rome, and my 20 plus years of working as a tour guide here, it's safe to say we know this city. And Rome is a city that is worth knowing well. It has so many incredible layers of history, art, and beauty to peel back, and we want to share that knowledge with you, our listeners, and maybe even inspire new passions that you will nurture and deepen long after our trip is over. The vast majority of people who come to Rome barely scratch the surface of what this city has to offer. And this trip is different. There are only 8 rooms available, and 4 of them are already gone. So if you'd like to claim a room or just chat with us about it, get in touch. You can email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, and one of us will get back to you personally to answer all your questions. Or you can visit our website, thebittersweetlife.net, to find any additional information. We can't wait to take you to Rome.
And we're back. All right. Well, just to wrap this conversation up, do you, because I know you've talked about, I mean, this woman who's cited in the article from Baltimore, living in Tbilisi, Georgia, part of the reason she'd like to return home to the U.S. is to give her eldest child more opportunities. That's the number one reason she cites for wanting to come back to her home country. I mean, I know you and I have talked on the show, although it's been a while. I know that you and Claudio have talked about moving to the States in the past as a possibility. And you did face some of these same concerns of what would we do for a living? Would it be completely starting over when we're in our further adult years, let's just say? And at times it felt possible and at times it felt impossible. And now you're telling me in this particular conversation that as far as you're concerned, you're never coming back. So I do feel like this is an adjustment from where we have been in years past. So let's just, before we run out of time here, let's just get the current temperature reading. You're never coming back at this point?
I don't want to say never. We never know what the future holds. But I have a hard time imagining it. I really have a hard time imagining myself living in the States, living on the other side of the Atlantic. It just at this point it seems so far away from everything.
Yeah.
Even though obviously Europe seems far away from everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's just a moment. It could just be the current moment that seems insane right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about politics. I follow a lot of educators on social media, really thoughtful educators, and they are sounding the alarm bells about what's going on in the schools over there, particularly way too much tech, which is causing not just kids on their phones, but just the schools insisting that the kids use computers all day long at school. And there are schools out there now that are requiring that their students use AI. I just don't agree with that at all. And because I have a school-age child, there is no way in the world I would put my kid in a school like that. Beyond even the gun violence, I mean, let's not even go there. But I just couldn't put my kid in an American school.
Mm-hmm.
That is how passionate I am in my belief that technology should not be a part of education. You can learn how to use a computer and learn how to type and learn how to use the programs, but you shouldn't be doing your other learning, your reading and your writing and your arithmetic on a computer. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's totally off topic.
Yeah.
But That is a big, big reason for me that I would not move back.
That's also a change from where you were at a couple years ago when you were talking about how old-fashioned a lot of the Italian educational system seemed, and how this kind of classic education at times feels completely bogged down and unreasonable.
Well, the Italian system is not perfect. Absolutely. I still have complaints about the Italian system, but I will say that after 5 years of elementary school, I have come to appreciate a lot of aspects of it. And I see in Aurelio a capacity to study, a capacity to memorize, which a lot of people are down on memorization right now because they're like, well, AI will remember everything for you. But we need to have knowledge in our minds. um, and his capacity to, reason things out. And I'm not in American schools. I'm not connecting with American students. And I'm sure there are a lot of incredible schools out there, many, many brilliant kids out there. But it seems like the average is going way down, especially according to, actual statistics and scores and things like that. Um, so I've come to appreciate the Italian school system. Now, does that mean I want my kid to go through all years of high school, middle school and high school in the Italian system? I would like for him to be able to go to an international school for high school, maybe a British school though, if that's financially viable for us, which I don't know if it will be. But he's going to Italian middle school. I've had to open my eyes and I've had to be a little humble. And there's something about Italians that, yes, they're archaic in certain ways. Yes, they teach Latin and ancient Greek. I I saw this little clip from a comedian. Oh my God. He said in Italy we don't teach English in high school. It's illegal. It's illegal to teach English in high school. We teach Latin and ancient Greek in case you get a job in the past.
Yeah, very nice.
So I've, despite the fact that Italy is so archaic, I do kind of get the fact that sometimes we leap forward towards what we think is progress and we give up things that we think are not necessary anymore, like cursive, for example, or just writing on paper. And then, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, they realize, oh my gosh, writing on paper is so good for your brain. Cursive is so good for your. And so in Italy, they don't adopt these things right away. They're very, very slow adopters. And that was very frustrating to me when he was in first grade. And I was like, why are they doing so much coloring? Why cursive in first grade? This is ridiculous. Why so much homework? And I do think that they go overboard in some cases. But I think that it's like they're the old people. The Italians, like they're the old culture. They're the old people who've been around so long that they're like, no, 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 we don't trust this new fad. No, 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 we're not gonna. We'll see. Maybe in 50 years, we'll see if it's safe.
Yeah, see how it pans out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's something to be said about that. But the other thing that I was gonna say, the other reason that still to do with education that I would avoid moving back is just the cost of a university education in the United States. I think it's outrageous. I don't think it's worth what it costs. I wouldn't. I mean, I just wouldn't want my son to be, saddled with, so much debt, and I wouldn't want to have to pay for it either. So, I think you can get great education in Europe. So we're here for at least, I would say the next 10 years minimum.
I mean,
for those reasons.
So really, from your perspective, the problem with these people in the article is that they want to go home. That's the problem.
I mean, look, I don't blame. I don't argue with anyone's desire to want to go back to their home country. I think it's typical. I think it's more common for expats to eventually move back than to stay forever. So I'm the outlier who has so completely integrated into the local culture, I guess, although there's always the things that will always seem foreign to me. This is so much more my home than I'm not going to say than the US ever was, because of course, for the first 26 or so years of my life, I had only lived there besides a couple years in Canada. Obviously, that was completely my home. But it doesn't feel like my home anymore. And when I go visit, I have a great time. I always have a wonderful time. but it's always like a trip and I'm visiting, and it doesn't feel like I've gone home in any way.
Yeah. All right. Well, feel free to weigh in on what you think. You can send us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to see this place that is Tiffany's home now, permanently, perhaps, forever, Rome, Italy, you should come with us on our trip to Rome this November, the 1st through the 7th. We are going on a trip together to Rome. We are only taking 8 rooms full of listeners with us, and it's going to be quite the time. If you want to read more about it, you can always visit our website, thebittersweetlife.net, or you can send us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, or I would highly recommend listening to a mini episode that we did a couple weeks ago, if you missed it, that Tiffany did, I should say, all on her own, talking about the trip and the reasons that you should come to Rome with us. If you want to look for that episode, if you didn't hear it, it is Bittersweet Moment number 243, 5 reasons you should come to Rome with us. She lays it out so beautifully about why this trip is going to be absolutely fantastic. bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com if you want to email with us about it. And I guess we'll leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye.